I started feeling unwell at the party. I went to a room to rest. Who would have thought that my wife would be serving every guy like some kind of waitress? Good afternoon. My name is Nathan. I want to briefly share something that happened in my life. I was married. She was a beautiful, sexy woman. I spent all my money on her, adored her, and always desired her. If someone had asked me who Jessica was to me, I would have answered without hesitation that she was my world. She was amazing, Mom, smart, kind, with that infectious laugh that could always dispel even the darkest thoughts. Petite with golden hair shone, she could lift anyone's spirits with just a glance, in every sense of the word. When I met her 3 years ago at a friend's party, I immediately felt that this was something special. We grew close almost immediately, and after a year and a half of being together, I proposed to her. It was the best decision I ever made in my life. Our life was simple and in some ways even ordinary. Work, household chores, occasional trips out of town. But every morning when I woke up next to her, I felt that quiet happiness, the kind people always dream about. Of course, Jessica had her own weaknesses. She reacted too emotionally to little things, and sometimes got confused about what she wanted. She also loved parties, dancing, and lively gatherings, especially when her friends or colleagues were around. It seemed to me that her lightness was like a breath of fresh air in our routine world, and in my passion for her. I was proud of her. People around her admired her, and she always chose me. That evening I was in a calm mood. The company we worked for had organized a corporate party at a country retreat with barbecue, welcome music, and a laid-back atmosphere. Summer was in full swing, and everything around seemed to be telling me, relax and enjoy life. Jessica spent a long time choosing her outfit, a simple light dress that showed off her slender shoulders. I remember how she spun around in front of the mirror, looking for approval in my eyes, and I didn't hold back on the compliments. She looked incredibly beautiful, truly. About 30 people gathered at the base. Colleagues, their families, friends, grilling meat, laughing, playing board games. Jessica immediately blended into the crowd, chatting easily with our acquaintances. I saw how she was surrounded by men, not in a bad way, it's just that everyone was drawn to her. She was always the life of the party. I tried to be part of the celebration too, but almost immediately started feeling unwell. Maybe I overheated in the sun, or maybe I caught something. My head was spinning and my body ached. By around 8 in the evening I realized I already wanted to rest. I told Jessica that I was going to lie down in one of the rooms in the main building, since the organizers had allowed us to use the rooms for rest. She hugged me, kissed me on the temple, and smiled, saying she'd come by later. I left without any suspicion, closed the door behind me, and fell asleep within a couple of minutes. I woke up in the middle of the night, around 3 o'clock. The room was quiet. Only faint music and laughter could be heard from outside the window. My head was still spinning, but not as much as before. I got up from the bed, thought about going to find Jessica, but then waved it off and decided to let her have fun. She deserved it. She so often put her own desires aside for me, for work, for routine. It felt right to give her this night of freedom. I lay down again and fell asleep. When I went outside in the morning, the base looked like it had been hit by a storm. Plastic cups were scattered everywhere. Leftovers sat on the tables. Someone was dozing on a lounge chair. Someone else was sleeping, on a mattress, in the pool. Jessica was sitting on the steps near the main building. She was holding a cup of coffee in her hands. She smiled when she saw me. She had that same lightness about her, no tension, just the scent of sweat and alcohol. I walked over and sat down next to her. She put her arm around my shoulders and leaned in close. I thought it was just fatigue. We sat there in silence for a few minutes, watching the morning come to life. No suspicions, not even a hint that something was wrong. Only later, days after, when the truth began to come out, did I realize the terrible scene I had missed while I slept in the room. A couple of days passed after that night. We went back to our usual routine. Work, errands, weekends at home. But something in Jessica had changed. I caught her in strange moments. She became jittery, sometimes turning her gaze away. When I tried to look her in the eyes, sometimes she seemed to withdraw into herself as if she were struggling with something inside, some heavy thought. One day I jokingly asked her, "Did you have a wild time without me that night?" Yeah, she smiled as usual and said something about just dancing and talking. I believed her. Back then I still believed her because because trust between us had always been something sacred. We were that couple who could always talk honestly about anything. But the little details kept piling up. Evening chats over text that she would end whenever I came near. A new kind of coldness in her touch. I started to feel a strange heaviness inside, as if something important was happening behind my back, but I couldn't figure out what it was. Back then, I still didn't know that soon my world, the one where I thought we were happy, would come crashing down. It all started on an ordinary Saturday. I was sitting on the porch, drinking coffee and lazily scrolling through my phone. It was a cloudy morning, and Jessica was still asleep. Then one of my colleagues, someone I worked with, messaged me. Nothing unusual, just some memes and a couple of jokes. But at the end he suddenly wrote and asked, "Nathan, are you aware of what actually happened after you went to bed?" At first I didn't understand what he was talking about. I replied with something like, "Not really, I just wasn't feeling well. My stomach hurt and I guess I got a bit of sunstroke." I lay down in the room and fell asleep quickly. Then he sent a voice message. I remember pressing the play button and my voice trembled. In the recording he sounded awkward, unsure of how to put things into words, but by the end, he managed to say that after I left, things got completely out of hand at Jessica's. She got so drunk that she completely lost control. And there were several guys there. He said he didn't want to get involved in all of this, but I needed to know, even if it would cost everything. I froze. My ears started ringing. I listened to the voice message about 5 times. My whole body tensed up like a string. My heart was pounding somewhere in my throat. At first I just wanted to ignore it, to convince myself that it was someone's cruel joke, but a couple of minutes later he sent another message. "I can show you. I recorded a video on my phone. I didn't want to film it, but when I realized how far things had gone. Just so you have proof, Nathan." The first thing I saw was our shared room in the house where the barbecue took place. That same backyard, that same table where we had been sitting just a few hours ago. Jessica, my love. She was standing there, unfastening her bra, laughing louder than I had ever heard before. Drunken, hoarse, loud laughter. Around her were men without shirts on. Some of them I knew. They were colleagues. I didn't remember the others. They patted her on the back, put their arms around her. Someone was kissing her leg, someone her collarbone. Someone was locked onto her lips. Damn it. She was saying something to them, and then one of them, the boldest, just grabbed her by the hips and laid her on the table like a baguette about to be sliced. She didn't even resist. She laughed and touched their pants with her dirty hands. Within a minute, chaos erupted. Chaos I can't even fully put into words. One after another, they came up to her, touched her. 4 men took her at once. In that very sense. She was only enjoying it. And all of it was without condoms. And she didn't stop. When one finished, another took his place. And all of it, laughter, jokes, dirty comments. And she, as if she'd lost her mind, forgetting everything. I didn't even watch to the end. I turned it off halfway through. I felt as if all my insides were churning. I threw up right there, on the veranda, on the floor. It was worse than any nightmare, worse than any pain I had ever experienced. But there was nothing I could change anymore. It was real. It was mine. It was her. Maybe she's already pregnant. If that's the case, then whose is it? God, I'm writing line after line, and I still can't believe that this is what happened to her. To me. I sat on that same veranda, clutching my head in my hands, unable to cope with the turmoil inside me. The images I had just seen in the video seemed to be etched into my brain. Each frame pierced me over and over again, not letting me breathe in or out. Jessica, my Jessica. The one I was ready to do anything for. The one for whom I was building our life. And now, I couldn't get one horrifying thought out of my head. None of them used a condom. All. Not a hint of protection. Not a drop of caution. I remembered how she laughed at me that evening when I went to bed, as if she already knew what she was going to do. A heavy realization hit me. What if? What if she's now pregnant by one of them? That thought hit me harder than any words could. All that trust, all the plans, all the memories collapsed in an instant. I could feel something dark growing inside me. Anger, resentment, and despair. Everything mixed together into an uncontrollable lump. I couldn't believe this was reality, that it wasn't just a bad dream I was about to wake up from. I slammed my fist on the table with all my strength, tearing the skin on my knuckles, and blood started to flow. I loved her. Damn it, how I loved her. And now even the thought of touching her filled me with disgust. And the scariest part was that I knew an even harder conversation or explanation awaited me. Or maybe there wouldn't be any at all. As I sat there, I already knew that I wouldn't be able to sleep that night, babe, and maybe for many nights to come. I didn't sleep all night, just lay in bed staring blankly at the ceiling, feeling everything inside me twist and turn. Thoughts kept spinning one after another, suffocating me, draining my strength. When morning came, I heard the front door slam. Jessica was back. I didn't move, just listened as she walked around the house, humming something to herself, as if nothing had happened. As if she were the naive, cheerful girl I once met. The contrast made me physically sick, her lightness against my inner hell. She walked into the bedroom, wearing jeans and a simple t-shirt, holding a paper bag with coffee. I saw her face glowing with happiness, and she said, good morning, darling, good morning." I replayed those words in my head, as quickly as she had spoken them, but I didn't answer. I just looked at her, for a long time, heavily, with such an expression that her smile finally faltered. "What happened?" she asked, cautiously approaching me. I just opened my mouth to say something, but I couldn't. Too many emotions, too much pain. I turned away one way, unable to look her in the eyes, unable to see the falsehood she was feeding me. She said I scared her, but I just wanted to scream, wanted to throw everything I knew in her face, wanted to unleash on her the storm that had torn me apart inside. I knew that if I spoke now, if I lost control, I wouldn't be able to restrain myself. Maybe I'd hit her. Or maybe something even worse. I just got up, walked around her, and went into the bathroom. I closed the door behind me and sank down onto the cold tile. I heard her standing outside the door for several minutes. Then I heard her footsteps as she walked away deeper into the house. And that's when I realized I couldn't go on living like this anymore. I couldn't go on living with someone who had destroyed me. But how do you say that out loud? How do you put an end to something that was your whole life? How do you do that? I still don't understand it. I saw how Jessica tried to act as if everything was normal. She brought me food, sat next to me, tried to start small talk about the weather, about movies, about our old plans, together. But I didn't want to hear her anymore. I looked at her as if she were a stranger. Inside, I was boiling with anger at what she had done. Scenes of her with other men kept flashing before my eyes. I couldn't erase it from my memory no matter how hard I tried. She, on the other hand, pretended that nothing was happening. Maybe she was afraid to talk about it, or maybe she really believed it could all be swept under the rug. By evening, I couldn't take it anymore. We sat down for dinner, and as I stared at my plate, I quietly asked, "Jess, do you love me or not?" At that moment, she froze with her fork in hand and replied, automatically, "Of course I love you." But she said it so quickly, as if she had prepared that answer a long time ago. I slowly looked up at her and she said almost abstractly, "Why am I asking about such nonsense?" But I didn't answer, didn't say a word, just kept looking at her. And in that silence, I saw her start to get nervous. She couldn't stand my gaze. She looked away, fiddled with her napkin, rocked in her chair. I saw all of this and felt a kind of icy emptiness spreading in my chest. We finished dinner in complete silence. When she went to take a shower, I stayed sitting alone in the kitchen, looking at her half-finished cup of tea, the neatly folded napkins nearby, her phone left on the edge of the table. That's when it finally hit me that this life was over. What we had built together was destroyed, not by shouting, not by a quarrel, but by betrayal. Silent and disgusting final. I got up, went to the bedroom, laid down on the edge of the bed as far from her as possible, and spent the whole night lying there with my eyes open, listening to her breathing next to me, as if it wasn't my wife sleeping beside me, but some stranger. Jessica got up before I did. She immediately said that her stomach hurt and that she wasn't feeling well. I simply didn't respond to her words. She made coffee, prepared breakfast, as if nothing had happened, as if there wasn't a scorched emptiness inside me. I stayed silent, just ate, took sips of coffee, staring somewhere right through her. She couldn't take it anymore, came up behind me, hugged me, pressed her stomach against my back, and then rested her cheek on my shoulder. I didn't move, I just lost my breath, and a lump formed in my throat. She whispered my name. She called me by my name. This woman. She was trembling. "Nathan, what's going on? Why are you so cold?" I slowly pushed her away, stood up, looked into her red eyes, and for the first time during all this, I said, "That I know everything, Jessica." And then she turned pale. Her lips started trembling badly as if after a long swim in the pool. I kept looking into her eyes. Maybe an eternity passed, or maybe less. But I said that I know about that night, the night when she serviced every man she could. She stepped back and started crying. Jess started making excuses. Snot and tears started streaming down her face. She said that nothing happened, and she didn't understand what I was hinting at. I stayed silent while she talked. A lot. An awful lot. She couldn't form sentences, just incoherent, disconnected words. At some point she started screaming. No, not at me, but just so I would hear her. In all of this I saw her true self. Her fear, her confusion, her silent attempts to fix something, to explain something. But I didn't want to hear another word. I packed my bag with my things. All this time she was following me around and screaming. I took out the pregnancy test I had bought at the supermarket and put it on the chair in the hallway. That's when she started hitting me. She said I was a bastard and that she wasn't a whore. She betrayed me, and in a way that only those closest to you can betray. And there is no forgiveness for that. I tried to leave, but this crazy woman held me back and kept screaming. I couldn't even close the door. She desperately wanted to have a heart-to-heart talk. I managed to break free, ran out to the car, and got behind the wheel. I sat there for a long time, staring into the morning sky. She was pounding on the car hood, hitting the window, screaming that I had to get out of the car and talk, for the sake of our family. But at that moment, all the sound around me disappeared. I just watched a plane flying by. I wished it would freeze in place so I could always look at it and never have to look back at my life. But that's impossible, just like saving our marriage. I left immediately, just got in the car and drove off, with no plan at all. All I had in my pocket was my wallet, my passport, and my phone. I withdrew all the money from our joint account, every cent. I knew that if I didn't do it, she would take out every last penny herself. While I was driving down the highway, my phone was blowing up with calls. Jessica was calling non-stop, at first every few minutes and then continuously. I didn't answer. When I stopped at a gas station, I glanced at the screen. Dozens of messages. I already knew what they said without even reading them. Later, a photo came in with a caption that made it impossible for me to keep chewing my favorite sandwich. She used the pregnancy test I had left her. There were 2 lines on it. I threw my phone as hard as I could at the refrigerator door. The door cracked, and the man behind the counter nervously reached under the table. I started apologizing, crying, and briefly explained what had happened. I left a couple hundred for the fridge and got a few comforting words from the gas station attendant. It was so hard to feel all of this. That day, I drove into a small town, rented a cheap motel room, lay on the hard bed and stared at the ceiling, feeling wave after wave wash over me, emptiness. Then tears, then emptiness again. Lying nearby were my money, my clothes, and my old life, cut off in a single evening. If only I hadn't felt sick, if only I hadn't gone to sleep. And if I had gone to everyone when I woke up in the middle of the night, I could have seen everything with my own eyes. She ruined everything. That snake killed me and created a new life inside herself. I hate her. I hate myself. I wish I had never met her. I just can't. I just can't, that's all. You and your desire to be the life of the party finally came true. You really were the center that everyone entered, and everyone left their disgusting surprises. You bitch. And you're not my wife anymore, Jess. Now you belong to everyone. Now, you're free for anyone. Dear friends, unfortunately, this is where the story ends. The author never posted a continuation, and all we can do is guess how it all ended. In truth, I have a lot of sympathy for the author, and the person who went through all of this. There's nothing more to add. Well, there are women like that. But for someone to end up in such situations is truly, truly terrible. I wish that no one ever has to go through anything like this, and that everyone lives a happy life with their family, and never experiences such problems. This is where our video comes to an end. I just want to wish you all the very best. And be careful with your significant others. Thank you for watching our video to the end. You can also watch our previous videos on the channel. Don't forget to subscribe and set up notifications. That way you won't miss any stories we release. Thank you, and see you soon.